This is the Extreme Stewardship Podcast, where we explore anything and everything that gets us better at making things good and good at making things better. I'm in a series of episodes right now about the various ways that we make things better. And I'm suggesting that we make things better, we improve creation, when we make things more orderly, productive, beautiful, virtuous, and fun. Each of these includes a wide range of activities whereby we make creation more of what God wants it to be. But because we are sinners, because there is sin, because the creation itself is infected and corrupted by sin, each of these also includes a wide range of activities whereby we make creation less of what God wants it to be. Order can be disordered. Productivity can be unproductive. Beauty can be ugly. Virtue can be vicious. And fun can be miserable. So with each of these, I'm saying a few things about what they look like when they're good, and a few things about what they look like when they're not so good. I had done 2 episodes each on order and productivity, and last episode was supposed to move on to beauty. It was hard to do that last week because of the ugliness that has enveloped my community in recent days. So last week was only sort of about beauty and primarily about forest fires. In this episode, I'm going to get back on track and meditate on beauty, though don't be surprised if I come across like there's still a little smoke in the, because there is. Before I get underway, I have a quick favor to ask. If you've been following the Extreme Stewardship Podcast for a while and have found it beneficial, could you pause for a second and think of someone who you know who might also enjoy it and send them a quick text with a link to the show? I'd love to invite a few more people into these conversations and encourage them in their work to become the creation-improving stewards God made them to be. And you sending a text to a friend is the easiest way to do that. Okay, beauty. This was a challenge. Beauty is a much harder idea to get our heads around than order or productivity. Harder to define, harder to unpack. It's one of those things that we say, I know what I mean by it until you ask me what I mean by it, and then I can't articulate what I mean by it. Beauty means attractiveness, like I'm drawn to it. It means pleasurable, like I enjoy it. It means inescapability, like I can't ignore it. If I find something visibly beautiful, I'm going to look at it. If I find something audibly beautiful, I'm going to listen to it. If I find something conceptually beautiful, I'm going to think about it. And not only am I going to engage it in those various ways, I'm going to be changed by it. I'm going to be moved by it. My emotive state will be different because I encountered it. It makes me feel things. And that's not as fuzzy a way of saying it as it used to be, because there's a whole new field of scientific inquiry called neuroaesthetics, where they measure the effects on the brain of encounters with things that are aesthetically pleasing, things that we find beautiful. The brain scan component of beauty is fascinating to me because it concretely demonstrates that beauty is a functional concept. To call something beautiful is to imply that it does something to us. And this is important because compared to order and productivity, beauty can seem a rather unnecessary or impractical thing. A piece of art just sits there. Pretty music won't get the chores done. But this is wrong, because the very nature of beauty is to affect those who encounter it, to draw them in, to change them. Let's lay it out like this. Beauty is a 2-sided coin, expression and communication. Beauty as expression means what I create says something about me or my world. Beauty as communication means what I create says something about me or my world to you. Beauty as expression is simply, here's what's inside of me, and out it comes. When I'm drawn to write poetry, it is very specifically because something wants to come out of me that I cannot express in prose. Sometimes something wants to come out of me that I cannot express in words, and so I might turn to another audible medium like music or to a visual medium like paint. I am not in those moments thinking about the reception of my expression. I'm merely caught up in the need to express it. And that can be beautiful. The other side of the coin is beauty as communication. Now there's something inside of me that wants to come out, but it will more specifically come out toward you. It's an invitation from me to you to feel something of what I feel, to know something of what I know, to join me in drawing closer to the same thing. When we say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, That's not precisely the whole truth, but it does recognize that two different people can find two different things beautiful, that one person can be enraptured by one artistic output and not another, and another person is enraptured by the second piece of art and not the first, and neither of them is necessarily wrong. Now, this happens because beauty is a matter of communication. And like any other form of communication, one person picks up what you're laying down and another person doesn't, for lots of reasons. It also explains the trope of the artist or author who isn't appreciated until after they're dead. Their communication didn't communicate with their own community, but it did communicate with the community that came later. It happens. Beauty as expression and beauty as communication. Beauty as what's inside me and comes out, and beauty as what's inside me and comes out toward you. So now the question is, well, what does God think of this? What's his perspective on beauty? I'll start with the obvious. God is the originator of creaturely beauty. Big beauty like the Pacific Ocean, small beauty like the rose, even smaller beauty like the molecular structure of one atom of that rose. Visual beauty like the savanna landscape, audible beauty like the songs of the birds outside your window, beauty in the endless variety of plant and animal species, beauty in the elegant simplicity of a planet going around and around and around, never wavering from the laws that govern its path. We are beset by beauty that God has expressed and communicated to us. God's creation is beautiful. If I can't receive that communication, that beauty, that's a me problem. If I'm not awed by the Grand Canyon, if my stress levels don't come down sitting beside a lake in northern Michigan, if I don't feel smaller hiking in the Himalayas, if I don't feel better watching a sunset, that's a me problem. Those things are beautiful because they are God's own expression. If there's a communication breakdown, it's not on his end. And that's true of God's created beauty in a way that isn't necessarily true of anything we create. If I make something and you don't find it beautiful, that might be your fault and it might not be your fault. But what God makes is beautiful, period. God makes beautiful things. He also invites us to make beautiful things. And just like there's endless variety to God's own created beauty, the beauty we create is incredibly diverse as well. The Bible calls all sorts of things beautiful. The temple in Jerusalem, the music of the Psalms, the attractiveness of a woman to her husband. God also invites us to create beauty in arenas like poetry and geometry and architecture and theater and hospitality. All of these are good gifts from God to us. All of these are invitations to be like him as we express and communicate our experience of him and his world by bringing beauty into it. So now the big question is there a particularly theological way to name something as beautiful or as not beautiful? Or perhaps as more beautiful or less beautiful? In other words, how do I know if the thing that I, as a human made in God's image, made to bring things into existence that weren't there before, how do I know if the thing I created is beautiful? The first thing that comes to mind is that beauty is a matter of resonance. And I mean that in a much broader sense than musical resonance as opposed to musical dissonance, because music that is beautiful quite often includes dissonance, and there's a good reason for that. So when I say resonance, I mean there's a connection, there's a match, there's a this fits that dynamic that's almost always in play. The first resonance is between the art and the artist. We've all heard songs from famous musicians and thought, this one smells like they wrote it for the payday. It doesn't have the soul in it that attracted me to their music in the first place. Those songs lose something of their beauty because they are false. And by false, I mean there's a disconnect between what's inside the artist and what came out of the artist. Of course, payday songs aren't always dissonant on this level. Maybe the artist did that on purpose because what's inside of them is a desire to make money. In that case, the dissonance isn't between the artist and the art, but between the artist and the audience. And I'll get to that one in a couple of minutes. The second resonance is between what's in the artist and what's in the world. This is a very wide lane because what's in the world can include the way the world once was, the way the world currently is, the way the world should be or could be, the way the world will be in the future. All of these are on the table, so there's a lot of material to work with. Think of something you call beautiful. I'd be willing to bet there's something about it that mirrors your perception of the world. Again, it could be the world as it was, as it is, as it should be, as it will. Maybe that painting conjures up a memory. Maybe that person represents for you the way a face ought to look or a voice ought to sound. Maybe that song reminds you that one day God will make all things new. Now, even fantasy can be beautiful, not because there ever was or ever will be a world with Balrogs and elves and wizards and magic rings, but because those worlds reflect truly some component of this world. The stories that artists tell in their beautiful imaginary worlds are not imaginary at all. They are powerful reflections of the world that really exists. The third resonance is between what's in the art, the thing being expressed, and the art itself, the form in which it's expressed. So a requiem is both a style and a content. If the two are mismatched, a piece of music in the style of a requiem, but with the words of a university fight song, it doesn't work. It's incongruous. It might be comical. It might even be intentionally ironic, but it's not likely to be beautiful. The fourth resonance is between the expression and the underlying physics thereof. Instruments have to be in tune. Vocalists have to be on pitch. Now, there's a necessary caveat here about styles of music that live in the just barely off-pitch lane. I'm not going to debate the objective legitimacy of musical genres. At a minimum, this is a point of overlap between this resonance and the previous one about the art form in view. Certainly, there are forms of music in which vocal sliding does not work. And perhaps there are some forms in which it does. And certainly there are forms of music in which detuned pianos do not work. And perhaps there are some forms in which they do. In general, the whole point of putting two notes together, whether simultaneously or in sequence, is that there is a mathematical relationship between the two such that certain combinations work and others don't. The fifth resonance is between the various components of the expression. Well, there's a kind of beauty in an a cappella solo, but there's another kind of beauty in the harmony of multiple expressions simultaneously, whether it be a duet, a single instrument with a single vocalist, a choir, a band, an orchestra. Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel is comprised of many beautiful pieces, but the whole is more than the sum of its parts because the whole is integrated. It's not just a pastiche of 75 different paintings that each happen to be beautiful in their own right. The sixth resonance is between what's in the artist and what's in the audience. How many times do we come away from something we found beautiful and say, it resonated, it moved me? That doesn't always mean I agreed with it, or that it confirmed my view of the world, or that it made me feel good, but it made me feel something. Beauty issued an invitation, and there was something inside of me ready to respond to that invitation. The seventh and final resonance is between what's in the artist and what's in God himself. Not every beautiful thing in the world specifically names God or acknowledges him, but those who do not know God still may express what is true about him, even if indirectly. Art that assumes there is beyond us, poetry that pleads for intimacy or rejoices in it, paintings that pursue the intricate design of creation even without naming the creator, music that rages against the darkness even when it knows not the light. Lament may be no less beautiful than praise, not only because it accurately depicts the world as it currently exists, but also because it assumes the listening ear of someone who can do something. Beauty, I think, is maximized when all of these resonances are in place. A dissonance in any of these is a diminishing, not necessarily an eliminating, but a diminishing of the beauty. The prelude to Bach's cello suite in G major is beautiful, but if I played it, it wouldn't be, because I lack the ability to play the correct notes on a cello. It's still a beautiful piece, but I would diminish its beauty in that particular performance. Now, maybe your 10-year-old is learning the cello and will be performing that piece at her next recital. Her version will be more beautiful than mine, but perhaps less beautiful than if Yo-Yo Ma stepped on stage. And yet, of course, we might argue that your resonance with your child is sufficiently greater than your resonance with Yo-Yo Ma that you, as the audience toward which beauty is being communicated, would rather listen to the former than the latter. Resonance is multifaceted, and I'm not trying to rank order these facets. I simply want to point out that beauty is maximized when all of these resonances are in place rather than only some of them. There are beautiful paintings that express things that make God cringe because they lead people to believe things that are wrong about him or about themselves. They're still beautiful because they have several of these resonances, just they're not as beautiful as they could have been. And remember that pop song the artist threw up there to get a payday, even though they'd rather compose something truly meaningful. It might still be beautiful, just not as beautiful as it could have been if there had been resonance between the artist and the art. Beauty has resonance. That's the first thing. The second thing is that beauty has depth. Here's a weird illustration. I'm an academic, so part of my job is to read dissertations in my area of expertise. A dissertation is basically a book that someone writes over the course of 3 or 4 years on a very small subfield of a subfield of a subfield. So I wrote a dissertation about the interpretation of a couple of verses in Exodus and Deuteronomy in Hebrews 12. Very narrow, very specific. But I wrote this book, and in that process, and since that process, I've read a whole bunch of other books like it because that's what we academics do. And I've discovered that dissertations fall into a couple of categories. Some of them are 300 pages of fluff, a lot of big words, a lot of long sentences, and somehow they don't end up saying anything. Some of them are solid. A dissertation isn't supposed to change the world. It's just supposed to move a very small field of study forward a very small amount. And if a dissertation does that, we call it good because it did what it was supposed to do. And when I'm reading one of those good ones, I get a lot of useful stuff out of it, but eventually I hit a wall. Like, I found what I came to find. It's time to move on. I think I went as deep as it goes. And then, on very rare occasions, I find a dissertation that just keeps going. Every time I think I've found what I came to find, every time I think, okay, I think that's about all there is to see here. I think I've hit the bottom. I realize the author has anticipated my sense that I'm done and given me just a little bit more to chew on. Beauty, real, God-inspired beauty is like that last dissertation. Every time I think I've plumbed the depths, there's more. Now think about God's own created beauty. How far in do we have to zoom to find a level at which there's nothing to see? I mean that literally. Can our microscopes go so far down that they're wasting their time? No, there's always more. The beauty of a human person is visible to the naked eye, but then we go to the cellular level and it's still beautiful. And then we go to the molecular level and it's still beautiful, and on it goes. God's homemade beauty is inexhaustible in its depth. And the same is true in a creaturely sense of the beauty that we create. It's not an accident of history that we're still singing Handel's Messiah almost 300 years after he composed it. We're still singing it because its depths have yet to be plumbed. Think about this. The most famous song in the history of Western civilization, the only song for which every nation on earth that knows it stands at attention, is the Hallelujah Chorus. And that song is comprised primarily of one word repeated over and over and over. And yet, every Christmas season, thousands of people around the globe say that word over and over and over, and millions of people stand in celebration of the magnificent beauty of that song. Why? Well, because it has resonance, and because it has depth, because it tells a story we never tire of hearing, and because those of us who love music can spend endless hours meditating on it and never get bored because there's always more to say, always more to see. That's beauty. Haydn's Creation, Michelangelo's David, Rembrandt's The Return of the Prodigal Son, Shakespeare's Sonnet 18, Hokuse's The Great Wave off Kanagawa. These are beautiful because they're deep. You look at them once, you haven't seen anything. You look at them 100 times, you've almost begun. You look for the 10,000th time, and again, you see something you've never seen before. I think it's often the case that beauty comes first to us in its resonance. The sound works, the color scheme fits, the lyric speaks to us in a way we don't yet understand. But if we stick around for a while, if we begin asking questions, if we begin to dig, now we discover that there is much more to this beauty than we realized. Now, not always, of course. Beauty as skin deep is not only a fitting description of a shallow human being. Other forms of beauty can be the same. But true beauty, beauty created by humans that honors God because it is like the beauty that he creates, it has depth. Now, not all of us will paint the Sistine Chapel or write the Messiah. And that's okay. That's good, because not all of us are called to gift the world with beauty in that way. I dare say Michelangelo and Handel didn't have time to do much else. And transcendent artistic beauty is not the only game in town. Most of us will enjoy that kind of beauty rather than create it. And yet each of us is invited by our beauty-making God to improve creation by making it more beautiful. Some of us will enhance beauty by enabling others to create it. Piano teachers of the world, thank you. May your students far surpass you. Some of us will enhance beauty by teaching others how to see it or hear it or understand it. Beauty is both expression and communication. And so in one sense, creation does become more beautiful the more we are able to recognize it as such. Some of us will enhance beauty by performing it. We love singer-songwriters, but there's nothing wrong with one person writing and another person singing, provided the song resonates with both. Some of us create beautiful original artwork, and some of us are skilled copyists. I have on my desk a reproduction of a great icon of the Transfiguration that one of my students drew for me a few years ago. He's not the original artist, but he still made my office more beautiful. I'm going to end with a little meditation on that icon, because the traditional Feast of the Transfiguration, if you're in a church that flows with the ancient liturgies, the Feast of the Transfiguration is August 6th, just a few days ago. The transfigured Jesus is the most beautiful thing that has ever been seen. That's partly because he put on display in that moment his divine glory. And there is no deeper nor any more resonant thing in all the world than the God who spoke that world into being in the first place. But the transfigured Jesus is also beautiful because he put on display what humanity, image-bearing, redeemed, restored, resurrected humanity, what we will one day look like. He showed us his divine glory, and that is beautiful. He also showed us his human glory, which is to say, he showed us our glory, and that is also beautiful. The disciples on the mountain of transfiguration came face to face with beauty itself, beauty personified. And Jesus says to them, you're going to look like this. I'm going to make that happen. I'm in the business of making creation more beautiful. So go and do likewise. The invitation we receive from God to bring beauty into the world, whether through art or music or architecture or poetry or any other form, that invitation is given to us by the God who, as Ecclesiastes puts it, makes all things beautiful in his time. So go and do likewise. And that, I think, is all I have to say about that, at least for the moment. Once again, I know I've only scratched the surface. Next episode, I'll try to say something of substance about what happens when beauty goes bad. But until then, thanks for listening to the Extreme Stewardship Podcast. My name is Michael Kibbe, and I teach Bible and theology at Great Northern University in Spokane, Washington. My behind-the-scenes partner in this endeavor is Ben Kibbe, CEO of Kibbe Consulting in Columbiana, Ohio. Our editor-in-chief is Liam Olmsted. Art comes from Leoline Houts, and music is provided by Dave Murray of Daradoon Guitars. If this podcast has been useful or challenging to you, shoot us an email, extremestewards@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And if you think it might be useful or challenging to anyone else, well, you know what to do. Ultimately, we hope that listening to this podcast has helped you get better at making things good and good at making things better.